it can be hard to hold at the same time cultivating a deeper relationship with nature and a kinship with nature and ripping this plant out by the roots. I've got some tips for you, so stick with me. First tip is that if it starts to feel like a battle, then it's time to take a step back. Because if it starts to feel like a battle, then that is a battle that we are not going to win. Instead, with some mindset shifts, we can begin to see how we can actually work in collaboration with nature. So I know it might feel like a contradiction right now, but it's part of it is about working in collaboration with nature to get rid of these invasive plants from in your garden space. Whether your garden space is just a few feet by a few feet or you're talking about acres and acres and acres. The trick about dealing with big spaces is permaculture zones, having a big picture view and then starting small. Start small, think big. We can do another video about that. So my second tip is to remember that you're doing a great job, okay? It can feel so overwhelming, right? But you're doing a great job. You care, you're taking action, and you're learning. So let's focus that effort to make it something that feels sustainable for you. Third tip is to remember that nobody can do this kind of thing alone. It's not all up to you. It's important to release the idea that we as single individual humans are going to have this huge, sweeping, beneficial change on the situation that's so deeply rooted. This is a chance to cultivate some mindset shifts and move from this perspective of human domination over Earth into we're Earthlings here, let's come into balance with the nature around us. It's really important to remember that there are going to be setbacks. It's not just a straight like, oh, I decided I'm going to get rid of this plant out of the yard, boom. It just simply doesn't work that way. Maybe over time, but just remember there's going to be setbacks. It's like a dance. Okay, so here are some practical tips of things that you can do as you are working to find more balance with these invasive plants in your garden or your yard. Remember, the goal is biodiversity. Healthy, balanced biodiversity is not going to require you to be there doing stuff all the time. So remember that the goal is to nurture the land into its own balance. The second I mentioned before is start small, think big, have a bigger plan, break it down into chunks, right? Zones, we call them in permaculture, and take it one garden bed at a time. Remember that it can take time. And here, when we're talking about these different zones, you know, it can take a couple of years. It could take 6 or 7 or 8 seasons in order to get the kind of balance that we're going for if invasive plants have really taken root. In that case, we can start in some of the zones that are closer to the living space, and then as we move on, we can start dipping into those zones that are farther away. See what I'm saying? And then that influence can grow out. Remembering that it's a dance, remembering that it's a long-term project. We're remembering the goal of biodiversity and sustainability. So what has your journey been like? I'd love to hear.